I've had to fight my whole life. Actually, my only deaf individuals can give you a sign name. And so my sign name is Stevie because they always see me fighting and fighting. But if you don't fight as a deaf person, you're not going to get anywhere in life.
Welcome to the Elite Few podcast, where we explore the fabulous, extraordinary world of the people who move the needle of success. Join our host Tiffany and producer Kyle as we dive into the stories and insights of the elite few who are making a difference and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Let's get started.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Elite Few podcast. I'm your co-host, producer Kyle Goodnight, along with my host, Tiffany. Go ahead and say hi, Tiffany.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Thank you for joining us again today.
So we've got one of the most full circle moments of the Elite Few. So when Tiffany and I talked about wanting to do a podcast, we originally felt that should need to be her story, which you're all going to hear eventually, of why to get things out of her brain, off of her chest, however you want to talk about it. And then we ended up having a lunch meetup at what was it, Tiffany?
It was Rainforest Cafe outside Animal Kingdom.
Outside Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
So I went there, was down for cheerleading with my daughter down in Florida. My daughter went off with her friends. I was going to stay in the park the rest of the time. Tiffany had called me, said, I'm going to meet you up at Animal Kingdom. We're going to spend the rest of the day together in Animal Kingdom and have some fun. So we're doing lunch, and I end up meeting this woman right here.
You meet Stevie and Jeff. We were all sitting at the bar. Yep. Well, I wasn't there yet.
Yep, you weren't there yet. I met Stevie and Jeff at the bar, because I'm the extrovert I am. I meet people that are sitting next to me. So if you're ever sitting next to me in the world, you're probably going to have a conversation with me. So I told her that, my best friend Tiffany's coming to eat lunch with us. Just warning you right now. She's like me on steroids, but she's amazing. You're going to love her. And so sure enough, Tiffany comes. The next thing you know, we're exchanging cards. Tiffany is giving Stevie a hug before we leave. And they live with what, a couple of hours of each other in Florida?
Yeah.
So talking about meeting up, and we're talking about an hour after meeting Stevie and Jeff. And as soon as I believe Stevie and Jeff left first, they had to catch up with their family, and we looked at each other and we both were like, that's it. We've got to interview those people. They've got to be on our podcast. We changed the way that our podcast was going to be formatted because of Stevie and her husband, Jeff.
Yes.
So I wanted to explain that full circle moment before we got into the show. And don't forget to share, subscribe. We're on YouTube. Hopefully you're watching us on YouTube. Leave comments. If you have comments, if you have questions, please leave them in the comment section below. But if you're going to listen to us on a podcast, we're on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, all the major podcast platforms. And if you hear this message and you need somebody to hear it, don't hesitate to share this with someone. Any of our episodes that you listen to, if someone needs our message, go ahead and share that with them. Tiffany, go ahead and let's get to the show. Introduce Stevie officially, and we'll go from there.
Okay, so to catch up real quick, because Stevie could hear nothing you were saying and has no clue what you just introed. He was explaining how we met at the Rainforest Cafe, and we were there, and he met you, introduced me, and then we just loved each other, and that was the end of it. So, and we changed the format of our podcast because after meeting you, we realized what we needed to be doing. So, since then, I've spent a lot of time with Stevie, and we've been very good friends. I mean, really close friends. So as if we've known each other for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And it's been amazing. Love it. She's perfect time for meeting her. I just went through some insanity in my life, and oh wow, that was the same summer. Oh my God, that had just happened.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So Kyle was I was just seeing him a lot at that point. All of my friends had kind of jumped in, and good Lord, I had a good support system and met Stevie, and really great, awesome good connection. I think that really helped a lot. And she was phenomenal. But I do forget she's deaf. So we're here to talk about her being deaf, how that is, how we operate. We've been on a cruise together. We're going on another one. We visit each other. I don't know what else to say other than, we're friends. But the reality is that you are deaf. I do forget. It's quite funny. So you can go ahead and explain that part because it is very funny. I'll walk out of the room.
She'll turn her back,
Yeah,
and start walking. And I know she's saying something because she started saying something before she turned her back. And I'm like, "Excuse me, Tiffany, I am still deaf. It hasn't changed."
And she'll be like, "I was deaf this morning, and I'm still deaf this afternoon." And we'll wake up in the morning or get coffee, and her wonderful husband will bring us out coffee, and I'll talk to her. I'll turn around from the kitchen, turn my back in our model home that she has. It's like perfect everywhere. And she'll say, "Still deaf this morning, Tiffany. I still can't hear you." And it's so she reads lips. And I will say, that ear, this ear is 20%.
I have 20% of hearing in the right ear.
Okay.
But it's in a very small frequency.
Yes.
And then in the left ear, there's nothing. There's no residual hearing.
And there are times I can reach that frequency. Somehow in my quiet, soft, mousy voice, you hear me. I don't know.
So here, I think I've got an idea because we're trying to figure out with the Michigan scandal and the sign stealing of what the lips are saying on the thing. So, here, let me have her look at me. So,
you have that.
So the way that we're filming this today, everybody, is I'm sitting across the room from them. So I'm going to go ahead and lift up my thing so she can see my lips. So with Michigan going through their scandal right now, I'm wondering if you can read the lips of what these coaches are saying, but then there's so many people saying, "Oh, how can they read lips? How do they know that's what they're saying?" I'm like, "Oh, I've got an expert. Let me call Stevie and to read these lips of these coaches that are saying that they don't know anything that was going on." I'm like, "We need lip reading experts, and we've got one."
Yes.
Go Bucks.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, and she does teach me some bad words. I love that.
Everybody always wants to know the bad words.
Yeah. I'm still not getting it right.
No, it's
do it with attitude. That's what
with attitude. Yes.
I should be able to nail this. I don't know. It's the one thing I need to say in all languages. But okay. So I really want to talk and go back to your childhood because when you were born, that year was 50%.
I had 50% hearing and nothing on the side, but nobody knew it.
Okay.
So when...
Oh, wait, just to catch the audience up, your daughter is an attorney.
Yes.
And her name is Tally,
mm-hmm.
and we did interview her. So anybody who hasn't seen that, please go back and watch, which is amazing. I absolutely love her and her husband. So go ahead.
So my speech didn't develop. Like, I had an older brother, so my speech just wasn't developing. And so my parents put me with a speech therapist who worked with me on my voice, learning how to sign, and lip reading with a mirror because I would say the words wrong. And she'd go, "No, look in the mirror, watch me, look in the mirror." So she really taught me how to speak, which it was during a routine hearing test at school when I was almost 12 that they were like, "Oh my," because I was in all the, I was put at the back of the class. I was labeled developmentally delayed, borderline retarded. And then when they realized it was my hearing, they were kind of like, "Oh my gosh, she's not dumb. She can't hear." Yeah. But, I remember really studying hard for spelling tests and knowing all the words. So the teacher, mind you, I'm in the back of the class, so the teacher would write spelling test up on the board, and I would write all the words down. So proud of myself. So I would write them down, but they were never in the correct order. So I would always get an F for not following directions.
Oh my word.
So
you spelled them correctly. I remember you telling me you spelled them all correctly.
They were all perfect. It was just the fact that I was the dumb girl who couldn't follow directions, so I was going to get an F, and I got an F.
Wow. And they didn't question you, talk to you, ask you anything. Last century was fun. So they went on. They actually did end up going to speech therapy.
Yeah, from the age of like 2.5, all the way through 6th grade.
And then how did that help you? What did you get from the speech therapy?
Um, well, I learned sign language.
Okay.
I learned how to read lips, although they didn't know that they were actually teaching me that.
Yeah.
But anytime you're constantly saying the same word and then a mirror, same word, so you learn to know what's being said.
Well, you're really good at it. Even on some of the tight words, you pick up things, but there are times where you just get it wrong.
I just get it wrong. Yeah.
And hey guys, I'm not making fun of her. This is a great story that we need to hear. The chef wakes you up one morning.
Okay, yeah, this is hilarious.
This is the
so my husband, I slept in, and I'm an early riser, and so he's
she
like,
is an early riser.
I am like crazy early riser.
Oh dear Lord!
So he's like doing this, and he's like, "Good morning, lesbian," and I'm like, "Huh? Why are you calling me a lesbian?" And I'm getting mad, and he's still doing it, rubbing my head, going, "Good morning, lesbian," and I'm like, "I am not a lesbian. What are you saying that for?" He goes, "Look at me, lesbian," and I'm like, "I know what you're saying." He goes, "Okay, look at me," and he spells out LAZYBEAN. I go, lazy bean. It looks like lesbian. Like, we were dying.
It was really, I love this story.
That's hilarious.
It was a really funny story. She usually nails it, but those little tight ones right there, you were just waking up.
I was just waking up.
Yeah.
And my brain is always like speed demon. Like I may get one word and then the third or fourth word. So I'm like, what goes with that? That. Okay, I know what she said. Or I hope I know what she said because I just agreed to it.
Yes, my dad doesn't admit he's deaf and just agrees. So
that's funny.
I hope he's not watching this. I'm not crying, everybody. I actually have really bad allergies and I'm swollen into everything because of all the medicine I've been taking. So the last few episodes we taped, I actually could have been crying, so it looked good. This is not that. So I just have to admit to you what's happening. So be like, why is she crying again? I'm not crying. I haven't been crying the whole time.
She's allergic to Ohio.
Right. Oh, I went ahead and made myself so you could see my lips. I've stood up. I'm over the monitors now. So on our two interviews, we're going to be able to see my lips, and if you can see me, I should be in decent light.
Definitely one that I'm taping again, just to get Kyle's view so he can actually take a look there. We'll put these little clips up so people can see what we're doing. So those are great stories. I want to go back to you learned your speech therapy, actually eventually found out you were deaf. And how did that come about?
So when I was young, I just turned 59. So they did the hearing test from like here 5 feet away. And they would say, just raise your hand when you heard someone, heard the noise on the earphones, on the headset. And to me, anytime someone had their mouth open, something was being said. So they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And I'm just raising my hand. So I would pass the test. So here in the 6th grade, another routine hearing test. And this time they had their head down. They weren't saying anything. So I'm sitting there getting irritated with them. And my mom worked in the same school. So they went and got my mom and told her to take me to the speech and hearing center. So she did. And it's the first time I was in the soundproof room. And there's this little window about this big. And all I see is the top of the guy's head. And I'm going, are you going to start the test? And he would just do this to me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you're pissing me off. So I'm banging on the window. Start the test. And I'm like, so I felt like it was in there for eternity. And then
I know somebody's going to comment, you should not be laughing. This is this woman's horrible story. And you're laughing. I'm laughing. Yeah, go ahead.
So anyway, he brings my mom in and he's telling my mom that I'm profoundly deaf. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I hear you. And he's going, And I'm like, oh yeah.
And how old were you?
I'm like, you're lying.
How old are you?
Like 12.
Oh,
I flunked
wow.
kindergarten because I was not
Yeah.
a smart kid.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I
They
flunked
obviously,
kindergarten.
and I want to get kind of the year in this because we said your age, but let's put it into perspective. You were born in the 60s. So let's remember that disabilities weren't a big thing. ADA wasn't really a big thing. There was no real acknowledgement about understanding this. And this entire time that you're growing up dealing with being deaf, not being acknowledged, no one understanding what you're going through, you not even really knowing what you went through, that this entire time you were also living in domestic violence.
Yeah, my father was very, very abusive.
Yeah.
Not only to my mom, we witnessed a lot
Yeah.
with my mom, but he beat his 3 kids too. So, and my mom was just an absent. She wasn't neglectful
Yeah.
parent, absent parent.
Absent. Yeah. I mean, I think what's more amazing to me is that you pushed so far through this. You went to college, you have a master's degree, and you have the religious, what did you tell me it's called?
Biblical studies.
Biblical studies degree. I mean, you are very educated in all the areas. Did end up being in a domestic situation yourself and got out of that and continued to push forward, educate yourself, and get an amazing job and do well despite the traumas and stuff you'd went through, and then continued to take steps and still do to heal yourself. What I think is more amazing to me is that with the ADA laws that came into play, and that there are currently laws today, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that should have been acknowledged, that still aren't happening on every occasion. Little things, like we went to the movies. They're supposed to have the reader box for you. And how many did I go through? 3?
3 or 4.
And I did keep my composure. For people who know me that are watching, I didn't lose it. At no point was I rude to a manager. No, for my brother watching, I wasn't. Tim. So we really, I handled it. I kept getting up and I kept getting the reader box. So we're going to actually watch that movie again with closed caption together. So I think it was an Avenger movie, right?
Yeah.
We had to, priorities, people. Yeah. It's just out that weekend. But there should have been, it was an AMC. There should have been working reader boxes, and there weren't. And the problem also was the managers weren't able to even help in any way or understood it. And both just seemed very confused, and they just gave up after a while. I have written a letter, so that's a thing. But obviously, Tiffany wrote a letter. But the reality is, you went to college, you went to schools, and you've had very good jobs. You worked for that insurance company. But in those situations, you were not treated fairly. There were issues that came up. And I want to talk about the first college situation that you went into, that you really didn't have the strength you had and the resilience and the grit. You still wouldn't have gotten that degree. You actually got your degree because you just pushed through.
I've had to fight my whole life. Actually, my only deaf individuals can give you a sign name. And so my sign name is Stevie, because they always see me fighting and fighting. But if you don't fight as a deaf person, you're not going to get anywhere in life. It's just unfortunately, who I am. So the first college I went to, they actually, I was accepted just like everybody else. I went to the student services to get services set up. I needed an interpreter and a note taker.
Yeah.
Should be a simple task.
Yeah.
They escorted me off the campus that day by security. I ended up getting an attorney that day, and we sued, and I was back in school pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, they still had to jump through some hoops, but I sued that college. And then there was another college that unfortunately I sued. Actually, the president of the college met with me, and she literally had her hand in my face doing this. I'm not dealing with people like you. And I had my phone on video and audio, so I'm getting everything. I'm just holding my phone. And I'm like, what do you mean people like me? She goes, that needs services and stuff. She goes, you people aren't going to be successful in the world anyway. So I'm just not dealing with you. I'm going to tell you right now that you're not welcome here and you need to leave. And I said,
Wow.
I said, is there anything else I
Kyle.
can
Wow. Do we
So
throw
sorry to
that
interrupt.
university? Do we throw that university under the bus? I mean,
I'm
or
not
do you
allowed
not?
because there was a
Oh, okay.
lawsuit. Yeah.
I'm watching his
Okay.
face from here, and I know the audience can see
Yeah.
the whole time. And
So
Oh my
anyway,
goodness.
well,
Well,
the
you know,
audience hasn't heard this story yet. I know
Yeah.
all the stories.
right.
So.
Well, and two, you know, like I'm learning disabled, and when I went to college, they rolled out the red carpet. You know, they allowed me to have extra time on my test. I could get a scribe, and that's not even being deaf or physically or mentally impaired. That's just having a learning disability. So,
yeah,
what year was that? First of all,
it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is services for us are expensive. That's the problem. They don't want to pay for the interpreters because you have to have 2 interpreters.
Right.
They go 15 minutes on and off. So
And they don't want
Gotcha.
to pay for it.
they don't
Gotcha.
want to pay for it.
So what happened? How did you go forward with this?
I was just determined to get my education. I thought I deserved it.
Yeah, and you do.
You know, I was a runaway in my earlier life, getting away from my
Of course. Yeah.
my
natural,
family.
yeah.
And when I set my mind to something, I was bound and determined to complete my education.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. But it took, you know, unfortunately, it took some fighting. But and fighting's exhausting. Let me tell you, lawsuits are exhausting. Nobody wants to go through that. But sometimes you
have to.
or you're not going to get anywhere in life.
So everybody's watching me, my fingers. I am a little frustrated with the situation because I do understand what the laws are and I do understand what should have happened. Kyle does too. And the reality of that situation unfolding, that was pretty much not her last situation. But you fought through it. And what did you get out of that? What was the final situation?
I got my master's.
You got your master's degree. And what was the other? There was 2 college situations. What was the other one?
When I was working on my bachelor's.
Okay. And please let's talk about that because it wasn't that long. I mean, neither of these situations should have happened.
Right. It was, let's see, when it was late 90s.
Yeah. So it was still new, but unacceptable. So go ahead. What happened in that situation?
Just after I had a great attorney who just laid into them hard and fast.
Yeah.
So that I could return to college and get my degree. And
didn't both of them, they paid for it, right? The bachelor's and the master's?
All of my college was paid for, yes.
So, I mean, the reality is not everybody would feel strong to fight as you did. But when you got into the workforce, I'm sure the laws were way on your favor at that point. And the companies did everything they're supposed to do, right?
We would hope, but...
I feel like you're setting her up for that was a very...
Did you sense the Tiffany sarcasm?
Yeah, the Tiffany sarcasm.
I don't understand that. No, go ahead. I definitely want to hear this story.
So I was
recently. This wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, this was probably 5-6 years ago. I was hired as a corporate trainer educator for a large insurance company. Again, I can't say the name because I agreed not to, because I did sue them.
Mm-hmm.
I was set up where I had like 12 to 15 people in a room. And I'm fine with that. I would tell my class, you know, I am deaf. Raise your hand if you have a question. We'll go over everything. Well, I got such raving reviews on, you know, the Survey Monkey that they would do, that they kept increasing my size. And they said, okay. So they sat me down one day and they said, we're going to have you do in-person trainings for social workers and nurses, anywhere from 150 to 300 people. I said, okay, they're like, we know you can do it. You're excellent. And I said, well, I will need an interpreter. And they said, what? And I said, I didn't lie on my, at the very beginning. You knew that I was deaf. I said, it's not fair to them and it's not fair to me. I cannot be in a room with this many people because there's always questions. Mm-hmm. And that day they wrote, due to your deafness, your employment ends effective. And they put that day's date.
I'm sure the company's attorney was like, wow, so yeah, I really can't help you. They
I'm
basically wrote
sure
you a
that
letter saying, we would like you to sue us. And we would also like for you to win this lawsuit.
Mhm.
And
It was a quick lawsuit,
oh,
and
I'm sure.
and it
Yeah.
was, it was
Kind of your
substantial.
face. It's like,
It was substantial.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, the nice thing is about this is there are laws to protect people.
But you have to fight for it.
You have to fight for it. And I think we just keep going over this in all the episodes we have. It is really, really difficult to sometimes constantly. There are people who just don't want to deal with. I don't know how many times I hear people say, I just don't want to deal with the fight. Well, this is why they get away with it, because
Absolutely.
they can.
Mhm.
And they're like, well, it's not my problem to fight for it. Well, it happened to you. It is. And I understand it's hard. I do. I know. I mean, there are times I just want to be like, forget everything. I'm not fighting anymore. But the reality is, if you don't do that, then
No one's going to do it
more
for you.
victims.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you did, you actually, I want to point out in the college thing, really, really impressed me. You actually made them rewrite their rules that included, go ahead and tell everybody. You can tell it better than me.
So I had them, along with all three of the lawsuits that I've had, I had them write a policy.
Yeah.
And actually the insurance company, they have an independent person coming in every year to see if they're following that policy. Because
Okay.
to me, it's not about the money.
Right.
It was about making a difference and paving a path for deaf individuals, because most
just loving
deaf
that,
people,
right? I'm like, perfect. It's like the perfect. I wonder we're friends.
most deaf people don't fight like that.
No.
And I think just because I had to do that, I can remember being in grade school, and you know how they used to pick teams. You're the captain. You're the captain. Pick your team. Well, I would be standing there last. I don't want the retard. You want the retard? Oh my God, I don't want the retard. And the teacher would go, let's flip a coin to see who would get her.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was, looking back, there was discrimination from day one. Wow. I mean, I flunked kindergarten. I shouldn't have flunked kindergarten. Who flunks kindergarten? Oh, that'd be me.
Yeah.
But just looking back on my whole, my parents mainstreamed me. And there was a deaf school right there, St. Rita's School for the Deaf in Cincinnati.
Wow.
But it's definitely been, it's a double-edged sword, because I know I have this beautiful voice, but I worked really hard for it. So
that was going to be actually one of my questions. Was when I first met you, I didn't realize that when you said you're deaf, I'm like, no, you're pulling my leg, because I've heard deaf people speak before, and it's very muffled and deaf speak, if you will. And, Marley Matlin, she could speak as well, but she still has the what's the word for it? The accent, I guess that's
the deaf voice.
The deaf voice, right? And you do not like it's only a few words that it would be, okay, well, that's just the way she says that word. It's not even close to being the deaf voice. And so can you explain a little bit more what you did? Like how much did you work on that voice?
I had speech therapy every single day, even on 6 days a week, even on Saturday. I had an hour's private speech lesson, because they were determined to make the dumb girl speak. If nothing else, she'll be able to speak. And so that was their goal. And I can remember going, no more voice. I'm done. Like this.
Because they originally thought you were nonverbal.
I would speak, but they didn't understand anything that I said.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand why they didn't understand.
Yeah. Because you're speaking it the way you hear it.
Yes.
Yeah. And so they just didn't know.
Yeah.
And I do know, with it being the time in history that it was, no excuse ever, but it is what it
if they would have known that I was deaf when I was real young, I would not have had speech therapy.
But your grandmother knew.
My grandmother did know.
And she was way before that time.
Yes. So my mom didn't like her mom at all. And my grandmother kept telling my mother, she's deaf, and my grandparents offered to pay for everything. And my mom was just furious with her. She's my daughter, you get away. And so a lot now, because I'm close to my mom's younger sister, a lot of doors have opened up. A lot of things that were, one of the things my aunt said to me that really stuck out is she goes, we remember coming over and dropping off some stuff for, school. And my grandmother was never walking around my mom. So, and my aunt's not much older than me. She's just like 5, 6 years older than me. So she said, my mom had a black eye.
Yeah.
And she said, I was always just kind of off by myself. So they went to check on me. And she said that my grandfather looked at me and said, are you okay through all this? And I told him at that time, I sleep like this so I don't hear them fighting. And she said they both got in the car and just started sobbing.
Yeah.
And this was before they knew that I was deaf. But yet my grandmother kept trying to force it on my mom.
Wow.
Well,
So, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to make sure, we've had a couple of stories here about the universities and then the job force, during the COVID time, you actually had an incident at Louis Vuitton. We're okay with throwing them under the bus. We're going to play that clip, but if you want to talk more about that, Tiffany, and then we can.
Yes, we're going to call you right. We're going to watch that Louis Vuitton clip right now and see what happens. And this is during COVID, so let's put some perspective in. All right, go ahead.
I'm gonna get my manager, so you're gonna have to pull that. Either you're gonna have to write that down for her. So I'm not an interpreter, and I'm not going to interpret for you. I'm gonna get a manager. I am not an interpreter. I do not need to interpret for my mom. I am not here to interpret for my mom, even though I communicate. This is not my job to interpret for my mom. They should respectfully pull down their masks or write things down, which is still not respectful, in order to communicate. She cannot understand without being able to read lips, and this is a big deal to them rather than helping somebody.
I don't want to say something.
Just be quiet.
Hi ladies, I do not authorize my consent for you to videotape me, so you will have to put your phone down.
Okay. You need me to write that down, what you just said.
You either have to remove your mask because I am deaf,
Or write down what you just
or
said.
write down
Because I'm not
what
gonna,
you said.
I'm not going to interpret for you.
You can put your phone down or I'll get security to escort you guys out.
Okay, then you need to tell her that.
You can't tell me what to do
You're right, I can't
regarding
tell
the
you what to
mask,
do.
ma'am. I don't understand what's happening right now.
She can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, and I apologize for that. I'm assuming that's why you guys are shopping together, but at this time, we went over the rules and the regulations, so.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
She
we're
can't
happy
hear
to
what-
we're happy to
And what
assist
is
you
your name?
online.
She can't hear what you just said.
Okay,
So if you want her to stop videotaping you, that's perfectly fine. Just tell her by writing it down
no,
or pulling your mask down.
we're not playing games here.
I'm not either.
Please, I don't have to do any of that. You guys can. We're not doing
That's okay.
this
It's on
today.
national television tomorrow. Louis Vuitton and Kenwood Mall. This is the manager. Refused to communicate with the deaf woman, even though she was deaf.
Under ADA law.
Louis Vuitton.
So basically, during COVID, everybody had their masks on. And had you had COVID yet?
Yes, I cover it at the very beginning because I'm healthcare.
Okay, so when you got COVID, it actually went from 50% to 20.
It went down to nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. I literally woke up with no residual hearing, and I went to an ENT, and the first question out of his mouth was, "When did you have COVID?" And I said, "About 2 weeks ago." He goes, "Okay, we have a very small window to restore a little bit of your hearing."
Oh,
So
great.
he restored a smidge.
Good. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we were here. You were during COVID. You were shopping with your daughter in the mall, and you went to the store, and they wouldn't take their masks off. We just saw it on the clip.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't just them.
Yeah.
It happened a lot. That was one that we just,
Videotape.
I was
It was
frustrated
everywhere.
and I put out my phone and started filming.
Yeah. And it was really kind of astonishing because your daughter explains what the laws are, what's going on, and that they can't do that. They refuse. They wouldn't take their mask down or write on a pad. So everyone listening, and you're a mask person, and you're like, well, dear God, if they took their mask down, they'd die. Okay.
Step 6 feet away.
Right. She wouldn't.
Less than 15 minutes, 6 feet away.
Yeah, she literally said you can write on a pad. Write on a pad. They refused. Then they told, you guys saw in the clip, they told your daughter that she had to interpret. So in that situation, what in the world? And this isn't,
they wouldn't even let us in the store.
No, this isn't even just here. It was anywhere. So I really didn't know this, but apparently having COVID meant we don't have to follow American Disabilities Act laws.
Evidently.
Was that right, Kyle? As a medic,
no. You should still follow the laws, right?
Okay. So I was so very confused about that situation then. Sorry for people who are like, wow, she can be a bitch. Yeah. The reality is those laws are in place for a reason. They're there. How hard would it have been with or without the law to just pick up a pad of paper and they could write on it?
You would think.
And you're shopping. And
there's also voice to text on people's phone.
Right. There was a million ways they could have chose to try and
she
remedy
said,
this.
I don't know what kind of game you're playing. And I'm thinking.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking. Oh.
This is such a fun game I've had my whole life. It's real exciting. Yeah.
No. Not a game.
This is not a game.
It's almost like the movie The Joker when he has that laughing problem. He has a card that explains it. Like, are you supposed to have a card that actually officially tells people that you're deaf?
I think I need it tattooed on my forehead.
We can do that today.
We had too much fun on the cruise. They were pretty receptive, I think, for the most part.
For the most part,
they tried. They had the hearing for the shows. What?
Yeah, it was amplified, but it wasn't clear. So
it wasn't clear. Yeah.
It wasn't helpful to me, but the shows were good. Just watching them.
Well, what we need, and this is a real product, and I asked a friend of mine who can make these things about it, but I don't know. He's just too busy with other stuff. But we need an app. And Stevie and I talked about this when we were over in Tampa at the beach. And we were all sitting at a table at a restaurant outside. And what we really needed is you can hear with your earbuds in.
Yeah. So I have an amplified phone that they do something to when I purchase it.
Yes.
And then I have the Bluetooth.
Right. So this way she can hear a little bit better. And when I call her, as long as she's not in a loud place. If we're at Disney and I call her, or at a restaurant, Jeff will go, Stevie's phone, and then I know they're in a place, right? When we are in some place loud, I do have to make sure I'm looking directly at her. And it would help if I would have learned sign language, many times. But
or just not turn your back, honey. Just not turn your back. Tiffany, I'm still back.
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. So still not crying, still just allergies, but that was funny. So we do recognize the fact that there's all of this, going on. If we could have a device, like we said, that sits on that table and something like this, and it would plug into your ears, you could hear the conversations. We were talking about that. Remember when we were down there? And it would be great in any of the situations. She just puts a little thing there. She can now hear at the table. And yes, we realize not everyone who's deaf. Please do not make a comment saying how you know someone who's way more deaf and that will never work. We know that. That's where we understand that. So let's move on. The reality is there are many people in this situation, elderly. What did we just talk about recently? The amount of elderly you were
that are hard of hearing.
The ages that go up. Go ahead.
So they are getting more things for the late deafened adults,
right?
Which is nice, big phones, with big old numbers on them, stuff like that. But I do want to, if you don't mind, I want to tell a story of something that just happened last week.
Yeah.
So I had an appointment. And I don't drive much right now. That's a whole nother thing. But anyway, I drove myself to the appointment and I parked in a parking garage. So it was a really windy day and my parking ticket blew away. So they have this box thing and you push for someone to come on, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. And so I was stuck in a parking garage for like an hour and a half. I was so frustrated. I'm like, do I call the police?
Wow.
I'm like panicking. I'm like, what do I do? I finally saw someone like leaving that had like a uniform type thing on. And I'm like, hey, and I'm frantically running her down. And she's like, I'm on my break. I'm going to lunch. And I'm like, I've been stuck here for like an hour and a half and I'm so she actually helped me, but I was stuck in there for an hour and a half, no closed captioning. And this is 2023, people. This is what happens to deaf people still today.
Wow.
Just watching his face.
I was in tears. I was like, how am I going to get out?
I'm trapped now in my own world,
It was awful.
Yeah. I'm glad that lady helped you. I mean,
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It was an ordeal. Quite the ordeal.
Right.
So there are places you can go to understand the ADA laws better. And we'll put that on the link right there for you. Recognizing, I think, all the situations and what they are is most important. But realizing if you do know somebody, the elderly thing we were just talking about, they're aging. It's a percentage. You were telling me recently, the older they get, the higher the percentage. Most people by a certain age have a 20% loss.
Yes. Statistically, there's it moves up with age.
So the elderly in general do not like to admit that they have some sort of disability, where you had no choice growing up and it was your lifestyle. Let's just pick a random old person out of nowhere, like my dad. So we go in and Stevie had explained to me how when she got her hearing aid, she hated it because there was so much noise. You had no way of desensitizing 50% of the noises that we hear. And it was everything, a rap or a door. You had no clue how much sound was out there. So when my dad told me he got his hearing aids, he hated it. He goes, I can hear everything, the leaves blowing. And that was when I realized you have been deaf. I actually did say hard of hearing, which I now know you're not supposed to say. But I'm like, you've been deaf for quite some time. And it's been not a little. At this point, when I said this to him, it was after I met you. And I said, look, that I know you've been deaf, because Stevie said the same thing, and she actually is deaf. And he goes, no, I am not. They only make me burp so I can hear people talk. I don't need to hear all of that. And I was like laughing because he just turns it off. So he still can't hear us talk. And he's probably going to be so mad if I do this. He doesn't like people knowing he has a hearing aid to begin with. It becomes a huge issue. And the other day I bring him out candy. So we're at my nephew's 7th birthday party. My mom likes peppermint patties. I come outside. Dad, where's Mom? I brought her peppermint patty. I don't know. Your mom's not here. Okay. Well, will you hold this candy for her? Because she's going to come back out. Okay. So we come back out later. Dad, where's Mom's candy? I ate it. What? He goes, you gave me candy. He actually didn't hear Andrew. My sister's like, he didn't hear anything. He heard Mom, candy. Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
And I enjoyed it. Because you actually put candy in my hand. Now, that being said, they've been married 900 years, so he probably could have just eaten her candy. But
it was hers.
It was hers, yeah. And the reality was he doesn't hear. So, and he didn't have his hearing aids on that day either. And it was just really funny. And there are many times we'll have a conversation. And I'll know Raglan Road at Disney, very loud, right? Can't read lips because he doesn't know how. And I'll say, oh, you don't know what's happening. So I'll fill him in. And he goes, yeah, I'm glad I can't hear. He told me that. He goes, I realized when I got the hearing aids, I just really don't want to hear everything people. And I was like,
so I do not wear hearing aids.
No. And it did drive you crazy.
It drove me nuts.
You thought you were going to go insane.
Yeah. So my doctor explained it this way. He said, the moment you're born, your brain starts blocking out noises. And mine never had to do that. And then all of a sudden I get hearing aids in my early 30s.
Like the seatbelt sign, Kyle.
And
I don't hear that.
Yeah.
noise.
Bing, bing,
I couldn't
bing.
do it. And both my girls hated it. So we tossed them.
Yeah, I think.
Well, because I'm sure that you were hearing things like,
Paper route.
the wind blow and the birds chirping, and is, if you're
I was-
used to it, it's beautiful. But if you're not used to it, you're like, that's annoying.
Yeah, what's that? My anxiety
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
anxiety. What's that noise? Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? What is that? And
Oh,
that's a pen, Mom.
a pen, like
It's all behind you.
a
so
writing
you don't know
pen.
what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I really, this was awesome. I loved having you talk about this. We definitely want to hit the legal issues later, and we can cover that another time. And I really think it's interesting. So we're going to post some links right here. You guys come here, check it out, see what you can do. Get knowledge on this situation. If you recognize that somebody is being taken advantage of, overlooked, or dismissed because of a disability, well, I mean, if you can catch them in an alley, obviously break their nose, but if we don't always have that opportunity. So please help them, get them legal help, see where you can go with that. And there's so many avenues to get through it. So I really think we can learn a lot from this situation and move forward. And I mean, you are doing so much. I'm always impressed at you all the time. So that was it. I want to thank you for coming. We love it. Kyle, I want your final words.
Yeah, I really appreciate this. It's surreal to me that we had this dream of starting this podcast and interviewing fabulous, extraordinary people that make a difference and that can help people. And even though she doesn't get paid or is not a coach, she still, through what she has done in her life to help herself, you just listening now, some of the things that she's gone through, you can actually, this is her platform to help you. So the Elite Few, of course, is Fabulous, Extraordinary World, and we interview the people that make a difference in it. And Stevie is definitely one of those people. And I'm just so glad to have met them. I'm so glad I'm an extrovert, and I decided to strike up a conversation with him and with Stevie and her husband, Jeff. And Jeff, we're going to have him on because dude is like, yeah. I'm like, so what do you do? And he's like, I'm a rocket scientist.
No, he's not a rocket scientist. No, Stevie can tell you what he does. What does he do?
He works for Underwriter Laboratories. He's an account manager.
Yeah, but he works for NASA. He has.
No.
Oh, then he pulled my leg that day. Either way, great guy.
He is a great guy.
He's an amazing guy.
I think he's pretty nice to you.
He's really good to me.
Yeah. I mean,
I get to me.
well,
And he
Of course, he better be nice to. He's married to her.
You know?
Who are you talking to, Kyle? I'm sitting here. You're saying, of course, you should be nice. You're married to her.
What,
I'm
Jeff?
just saying, there are not all husbands are nice.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's hard. Yeah, and you'll see those episodes very, very soon.
But I mean, the reality is, he is really sweet. And there are times we go to the clubhouse and what are we doing tonight, Stevie? Well, we're going to the drug clubhouse to drink, of course. So this is what you do in the community they live in, and it's really fun, and it's a really great place. I really like it.
Yeah, you even called me. We're like, Kyle, I think I want to move here.
It's a compound.
Just like we never heard they have to leave the compound. They have restaurants, pool bars. I mean, it's really everything our generation needs. In it. They don't have a putt-putt. They should add that. They have golf. You live on the golf course, yes, but we need some putt-putt and maybe a couple 80s bars. But we'll go down. Jeff drives us on the golf course. We both walk in drunk. He's totally sweet about it. Handles it like a charm. Love that. Yeah, that's a good husband. You really got to be supportive. So, all right, everybody, tune in again. How you said your final words. And all right, thank you so much, Stevie, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
And I want all of you to follow, like, subscribe, share, and please, 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 I want you to be healed. I want you to be happy, and I want you to stay fabulous.